Hello and welcome back to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I have the pleasure, as always, being joined by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hello, Stephen Hackett. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good. It's December, man. What?
Yeah, I love it. I love December.
Yeah. So the Sparks family, as we've talked about over the years, big Christmas people at the Sparks household.
Yes. Both Christmas trees are up now.
Okay.
Both. I updated, this is a Mac Power User thing. I bought the Eufy outdoor lights where you can change the color.
Yeah.
Those were cool. When the Dodgers were in the World Series, they were blue on the outside.
Nice.
Thanksgiving, they were kind of orangish yellow. And now we got your solid green and red with a little animation. So that's
awesome.
kind of cool.
That's good. You're festive over there.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we put our tree up this weekend. We are staunchly post-Thanksgiving Christmas people.
Yeah.
Right? And so the tree is up. Of course, we're in a new house, right? So we had to debate where the tree was going to go and, what gets lights, what doesn't. But it is the first house that we've ever had together that has a mantle, has a fireplace. And so we hung the stockings over the mantle. It's like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, isn't that?
They were just hanging in a doorway.
Or did you get holders? What was your technique?
We got holders they're like metal, basically. They kind of look like S-hooks, but the top is flat, so it distributes the weight over the mantle. My brother-in-law had some, and I was at his house over Thanksgiving. I took a picture. I was like, that's what we need.
Yeah, my wife is Filipino, and in the Philippines, they famously, what they say over there is that you can celebrate Christmas in any of the Burr months. Mm-hmm. Starting with September, October, November, and December. They don't have a Thanksgiving firewall over there. So my wife likes to get started early. She loves it, and I like doing it with her. What's weird for us is our kids are getting older. Now it seems like we do all the work ourselves. Mm-hmm. My new hobby of Christmas is finding all the children in my extended family and friends and just cranking them up every time I see them, just cranking them up for Christmas, then sending them to their parents.
Yeah. We're in the phase, I got 2 high schoolers and then a 5th grader, and they basically decorated the tree this year. We put the tree up, and Mary and I did the lights, and we just let them do it. When they're 3, everything ends up at the same level, right? Just at the bottom of the tree, all the ornaments are together. But honestly, they did a really good job. So anyways, a little bit of housekeeping. We're talking about the holidays here, and we are running a special on our annual membership. So if you join, you get access to more Power Users, which is the longer and ad-free version of the show. You don't have to sit through advertisements. You get an extra chapter at the end of the show each and every week. And right now, it's 20% off. And that means it's basically $1 a week. And so if you want to support the show directly, you want more of the show, you just don't like ads, now's a great time to go sign up. It's the first link in the show notes, giverelay.com. And you can also give a membership as a gift, right? So if you have someone in your life who doesn't know what to get you for the holidays, because look, us nerds, we're kind of hard to shop for, right? We're picky. Sometimes we just get the thing for ourselves. This can be a great thing to send to your aunt who doesn't know what to get you because you're into computers and she doesn't understand them. So go check it out, giverelay.com.
Do you want a sweater that you're never going to wear?
No.
Or you want a year of more Power Users? I mean, come on. Easy call there.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to be talking on More Power Users today. Speaking of More Power Users, the ad-free extended version of the show. Stephen has a broken Mac Mini. And,
I do.
We're going to deal with that. We're going to have a very special More Power Users where we deal with the broken Mac Mini.
It's sad.
Can't wait for it.
It's sad. Today is part 2 of our State of the Platform.
Yeah, I know. It's hard not to.
It's really hard not to say it because you have the official one the government does, and then that's what Apple calls their developer keynote at WWDC. Yeah. So I've watched State of the Unions for 20 years and it's just stuck in my head. Anyways, this is part 2. Last week we did part 1, and the week before that, we basically did a State of the Platform just about the iPad. And so those episodes are in the show notes. If you haven't listened to them, go check them out. But today we're going to start with the iPhone Last time the big one was the Mac. This time the big one is the iPhone. And I'd like to start where we did last time. What are we using for our iPhones?
Yeah, that's easy, right? I've got the latest and greatest iPhone 17 Pro Max. Orange, baby. Orange.
Pro Max. You went big.
Yeah, I've just kind of got to that. I like it. It's nice to read on with the big screen, and it doesn't make that much of a difference. A couple of years ago, I got the standard size instead of the Pro Max. I got the Pro, and that was fine too. But I do find, because I read enough on the phone, that I kind of like the bigger screen.
Sure. So I have a confession.
Uh-oh.
I am not using my iPhone 17 Pro.
What?
I switched to the iPhone Air that I also had. I had both. One was going to be a testing device for my work with Underscore.
I thought the Air was going back.
Yeah, I didn't do that. And then I was like, I'll keep it as a test phone, because I needed a newer phone in my test fleet when where I work on Widgetsmith and David's other apps. But every time I picked up the iPhone Air, I was like, dang, I really like this phone. And so I've been using it now full time. My number's on it, my stuff's on it. We will get to it as we work our way through the phones. But I left the orange phone behind. Which is
when I was looking at the outline for the show, because Steven just wrote, "What are we using?" and he didn't. Usually we put areas in there for each of us to answer. Mm-hmm. As we prep the show, and he didn't put that in. I was thinking, I wonder if he's up to some hijinks.
Yep,
you were. All right. Well, let me ask real quick. So the sacrifices of the Air, obviously, less battery life and less camera. Mm-hmm. And the benefit is that it's an Air. It's super light.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sexy with that, polished stainless steel and all that. How's that going for you? Just briefly.
You're aware of the trade-offs. So I reviewed this phone back in October, and I kind of closed it with, this iPhone has my heart, but I can't live with the trade-offs. I want the camera. I want the battery life. And just in the time since then, that has slowly eroded. Now, I'll start with battery life. I am an outlier. I work at home.
Yeah.
And so my phone can just be on a charger basically all day. Now, when I'm out in the world, you definitely notice that the battery life is not what a modern iPhone is. It feels like an iPhone from 4 or 5 years ago in terms of battery life. But you can do MagSafe charging, right? With the MagSafe battery, I picked one of those up. You can fast charge it. Fast charging has been on phones for a couple years now, and it's really good. So with some management, you can totally live on an iPhone Air day to day.
Yeah. And you're not totally an outlier. Even if you went to a fancy office and you had a desk, you could be charging it at work. I mean, It's not that unusual. If you work out of, like, if you were, a plumber and you were out in the field all day, that'd be different. But
absolutely.
But I think for a lot of people, knowledge workers, that you have the opportunity to charge their phone. So you've kind of negated the battery issue. If you have a travel day, like let's say you're going to fly somewhere, kind of come out here and hang out with me. Are you going to still try and get by with the Air on travel?
I think so, but I would definitely have a battery bank in my backpack. A friend of mine has the iPhone Air, and he travels a lot for work. And I know that he has had some days where it's getting pretty critical towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
But you just got to manage it a little bit. The camera is a bigger issue. It has one camera. It does 1x and 2x. So it's doing that basically like sensor cropping as zoom thing that Apple's doing. And the pictures are fine. Like it seems on par with, roughly with my wife's iPhone 17. It's fine in low light. It's fine, obviously great in daylight, but you don't have that zoom, nor do you, coming from a Pro, nor do you have the ultra wide. Now, I very rarely take ultra wide photos. I looked through my photo library. There's not many in there, but the ultra wide does allow for macro mode and a couple of other features where it's using data from that lens for other things. And so you do run into those limitations. If my kids are, like, for instance, later this week, two of my kids are in like a Christmas choir concert, right? And if I want a photo of them like on stage and it's with, basically just them, like the air's not going to cut it. It's not going to get that close. In which case, maybe pack a real camera. I don't know. But but for me, something has just switched where the thinness and lightness really is interesting. This phone feels the way the iPhone 10 did, like, oh, this is a different thing. And I am very interested in that. And I think it's really a compelling device, but it does have flaws. It does have trade-offs. And honestly, those trade-offs are one of the things that makes it compelling to me as someone who writes about this stuff for a living. So yeah, I'm on the Air and I really like it. I picked up my 17 Pro the other night. I was like, ooh, you're big. Big, but the screen is also small. So that's the other thing I like about the Air. It's in between the Pro and the Pro Max. And I think the Air screen size, for me at least, is just about perfect. And so I'm also enjoying that.
You think you'll be able to use it for the rest of the year? Is this like a passing fancy, or are you going to be your phone now?
I think it's going to be my phone now. I really do. I think that it's been great. The one thing that's sort of in the back of my mind is one of my kids runs track. Once it's track season, like, am I going to want the zoom? Am I going to miss the zoom as I'm filming her on her, as she's running or that sort of thing? So with that caveat, I think at least for now, the iPhone Air is what's going to be in my pocket.
And also, you have good cameras. You could bring a camera to the track
absolutely
with a lens on it and get some good pictures. Maybe that'll, re-wake some of your photography stuff.
Maybe so.
I have several friends that have these iPhone Airs, and to a man and woman, they all love them. I mean, it's like you keep reading how this is a failed product and Apple is never, all the rumor is really rough on this phone. But I can tell you that people I know that have them like them. And I think just go into it knowingly with a trade-off and you're fine. I mean, most people don't need the fanciest cameras. And like you said, the battery stuff you can work around if you're willing to put a little effort in. Well, I'm glad you're doing that, Stephen. I'm going to be very curious to hear your journey.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that Apple finally made an orange phone and you're not carrying it.
I feel bad about that. Thing. I'm sending mixed signals to Apple here. I mean, I did buy one and still own it. So
Tim's at the gym right now. That's where he listens to Mac Power Users in my headcanon. And he's like, well, as long as you bought one, I don't care if you carry it.
So I think overall this year has been an incredible year for iPhone hardware. The more I sort of reflect on this, and because I got my wife one, the iPhone 17 is without a doubt the best base iPhone I think ever. It's so good. It picks up always on and ProMotion display technology.
Yeah.
And while I don't care about ProMotion, and neither does my wife, we both really like the always on display. And, she did the same thing all of us did. It's like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, am I killing my battery life? You have to kind of understand how it works and where it fits in. But it really does make the iPhone more useful. It's just like the app. It's not as extreme as the Apple Watch was, but when the Apple Watch went to an always on display, it's like, oh, this thing's useful all the time now. And it's really great to be able to glance at my phone and see a notification or see a live activity without having to interact with the phone at all, right? Don't have to pick it up, don't have to tap it to wake it up. It's just always kind of there. And I think it makes the iPhone 17 feel much more feature complete than it did before.
Yeah. My wife and I, a friend of ours told us that they are emancipating their children financially. And my wife and I really picked up on that. So my oldest she's ready for a new phone. And for the first time, Dad's not buying it for her. And she's like, well, what do I need? I'm like, base iPhone 17. You're so good right now with that device. You're going to get everything you need. It's a very easy recommendation. It's kind of the MacBook Air of the line. I feel like, they go through these periods where they add new features to the Pro phone that inevitably are going to make their way down to the standard phone. But, the Pro phone gives them a chance to kind of perfect it and cheapen it before they put it down.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now we're just at a really good balance of that. In some years, the Pro phone features are so much better that you're really tempted to go up to it. But right now, I feel like enough has come down to the standard iPhone that for most people, they'll never know that they're missing anything.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's interesting to me that the iPhone didn't pick up the new design. It doesn't have a plateau going all the way across the back. I mean, It has sort of now the traditional camera bump over in that corner.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe for a couple of reasons. It may be to keep costs down. I don't know, if it's more complicated to build that plateau or to carve it out of glass or whatever they do. It's still a traditional phone in terms of design. The iPhone Air and the Pro to a lesser degree, the phone guts are kind of at the top of the phone, and then the battery's at the bottom. That's how the Air is so thin. That part of the phone also gets hot if you're doing something heavy. The iPhone 17 is a much more traditional phone, if you will, in terms of how iPhones are put together. But I suspect that over time, that if the plateau proves to be useful to them and they can do it, in the base phone, that it will pick up that design at some point. But by no means does it look old, I don't think. I mean, again, I've got, my wife has one of these. I see it every day. And it just looks the way that an iPhone has looked for a long time. And that's not bad whatsoever.
Yeah. Interestingly, the Pro's got better colors now. That's never the case, but this year happens to be. But I mean, I think the ProMotion thing, that was a penny that needed to drop to the standard iPhone. And it's just another reason to really like this phone. So the hardware is in great shape, iPhone 17. What about the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max? Even though you reject it and don't like it anymore, I will advocate for the Pro phone. Now, one of the things you wrote in the outline that I totally agree with is this is the most Pro of all Pro iPhones.
Absolutely. I mean, John Gruber has this thing, and as soon as I read it, I was like, I wish I had written that first because it's really smart. Like sometimes Pro means professional and sometimes Pro means nice in the Apple world, right? And for a long time, the Pro on the iPhone, like it had ProMotion, it had always on display, it had more cameras, but it was also nicer. Like for a long time, the iPhone Pro has been like this piece of jewelry with chamfered edges and shiny rails. And this iPhone Pro, I feel like that slider is all the way over on the professional side. I'm not saying it's not beautiful. I really like the design, but this thing is like, it's like an SUV, right? It's like a truck. The iPhone Pro this time around is form built around the function. And I just think that's super interesting that instead of the trade-offs they made with the Air, they went the other way with the Pro. It's like, okay, if this is going to be thicker and heavier because we want these features, then so be it. And I really think that's a good move. We spoke about this last time about the Mac, but Apple's the only company making iPhones. If you want to run iOS, you got to buy an iPhone. And for too long, the phones were kind of too samey, I think.
Yeah.
And this really sort of pushes that boundary out further.
Yeah, I'm just looking at mine right now. The aluminum is holding up really good. I know originally people were talking about the edge around the plateau. That it would chip if people were scraping it with keys and stuff. I have not done any scraping on my phone and everything's holding up. And I don't keep it in the case except like when I go out for serious things. I like to keep it outside the case since I have the insurance. I figure hell with it. And this thing is nice. And, I think the aluminum versus titanium thing, I like the titanium, but I'm fine with the aluminum too. And if putting it in aluminum allows it to have better thermals and allows it to be a little lighter, I am totally on board with that. I don't feel like I'm getting cheated because it doesn't have titanium in it and it used to. So I'm in general okay. I like the utility kind of truck version of the iPhone. And I do think part of the reason why we got this is because of the existence of the iPhone Air. Like if you want the svelte one, you can. And you can, if you want, they actually put more battery in the Pro this year because I think partly because they knew they had another phone you could go to if you wanted to optimize for something else.
Yeah, I think that's right. And yeah, the aluminum definitely helps with the thermals. Although I did see just this morning, I saw somebody with a natural titanium iPhone Pro, like from like 2 years ago. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that natural titanium looked really good. But it also, I mean, Apple also added the vapor chamber in the Pro and Pro Max, which is this chamber with basically a microscopic amount of water, and it uses that to help cool the phone by that water boiling off and then condensing and that cycle. Very common in other phones. You even see vapor chambers in some PC type components. And it really has fixed it. The iPhone 15 and 16 Pros, you could definitely get them hot. I mean, I would run into it in my truck, charging the phone using CarPlay. Very often it would stop charging and say, your iPhone will charge again once it's cooled down. And I think they've basically fixed that with this new design. I think that was really something they wanted to get done. And if you look at the teardowns of this phone, very clearly it's built in a way to dissipate heat through the chassis. And aluminum does a much better job of that than the other, titanium or steel that Apple has used in the past. And so I think that's another way this phone is more pro than ever. Like if you're going to use this phone on a film set and you're filming a music video or something else with an iPhone, or you're just doing YouTube videos, like every tech YouTuber I know, and I know a lot of them, like they use iPhones. I mean, they're using big cameras, but B-roll or, handheld shots will very often be an iPhone. And unless you're really looking, you can't tell the difference anymore. But if you're really doing that sort of sustained work, you need the phone to stay cool. And I think that sort of goes hand in hand with this idea that, hey, you're going to put this phone in a rig and use it for a long time.
Yeah, and I think the other penny to drop on thermals is Apple Intelligence. In theory, we're going to get the new Siri, which is going to take much more advantage of AI early next year. And I think that the phones that have the better thermals, like the new Pro, are going to be much better at this, and they're going to be able to not throttle the chip as much. And that I really am curious to see how that all plays out. But I think that vapor chamber and this material change is reflected in their thoughts about the future of Apple Intelligence as well. A little bit of a side note here. What do you think the future is for the vapor chamber in other Apple products? I mean, do you think that they're going to land in iPads and Macs at some point?
I think they could. I think they definitely could. I mean, putting anything in the iPhone is a vote of confidence on Apple's part, except maybe camera control. But you know what I mean. It's a big deal, right? If a new hardware is added to the iPhone, because they just make so many of them, it dwarfs everything else Apple makes. Right now, I don't think the iPad Pro and like MacBook Air have heat issues. I don't think. Certainly not that I've experienced. But if that were to be true, say we get to M6, M7, M8, and they're having issues with that, I think they could absolutely use this technology in other products. It's pretty well known now that while the MacBook Air and say the Mac Mini or the iMac, they all have the same chip, that the MacBook Air does tend to throttle faster because there's no fan, right? It's just heat soaking the chassis. And if a vapor chamber can get that heat away from the chip faster, then that's a good thing. And so I would not be surprised at all if at some point we see this kind of trickle out other places.
It seemed to me like the iPad and the MacBook Air are two devices that are fanless. A vapor chamber is like such a natural for them to help keep the thermals down. And like you said, if they put it in a phone, then they trust the technology. And I believe we're going to see more of that as well. What do you think of the big plateau? I mean, before you just gave up and rage quit your iPhone Pro, I mean, was that it? The plateau? Was that what chased you away? No, because you got that with the new one too, right?
I do have it with the new one. No, I think the plateau's fine. It looks modern. Like the Pixel in particular, that's been, they call it the visor, I think, on the Pixel phones, but that's a design trend in smartphones to sort of have a camera bump that goes all the way across. And I think that it looks pretty good. And I think with the orange and the blue, I mean, even the silver, the silver has really grown on me actually in this design. You know, you see more of that color when you put it in a case, which is nice. And it being aluminum, you know, I'm not so worried about it being exposed as if it were glass. So I think it works. And I think it gives Apple options. I mean, just look at the iPhone Air, not possible without the plateau. And I think Apple wants and needs that optionality. Now, I wouldn't mind if the camera bump was flush with the plateau. It's not. I mean, the cameras are still higher, you know, or deeper or something. The Z axis is further on the camera lenses.
Yeah, it still wobbles.
Still wobbles. But again, if most people put it in a case, that's going to eliminate a lot of that. But I have no problems with the design. I think it's fun to have something new. I think it looks pretty good. And the slightly rounded edges going to the flat sides is really comfortable. The Pro, I can't speak to the Pro Max, but the Pro in particular is really comfortable in the hand with those slightly rounded edges.
Yeah, I think that's true for the Pro Max too. I kind of wish that they would separate the lenses so you would have one on either side so it didn't wobble. As someone who doesn't put it in a case often, I don't like that. And I would think that if you separate the lenses, that would give you better separation for portrait mode.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I'm sure they have their reasons. And it's fine. It's fine. I'm just so happy that they made vivid colors for the Pro phone after, you know, a decade of some shade of gray for each phone. It's hard for me to find complaints with the hardware at this point. I love my iPhone Pro Max. It's great, and I use it all the time. And boy, it's just like I think that the current standard iPhone is kind of the best version of that. I feel like the Pro Max is also the best version of that they've ever made. I'm totally comfortable with the material changes and the plateau, and I love the new colors. And you know, Apple is firing on all cylinders and hardware. No surprise.
Yeah, I think it's a standout year. A couple of things that I want to touch on, sort of in this hardware section. The first being eSIM. So the iPhone Air is eSIM only, and the iPhone Pro, if you get it with a physical SIM card slot, you have less battery.
Yeah.
And you know, we get emails sometimes about eSIM and what we think about them. And my experience, at least, has been that eSIM has been flawless. I'm on AT&T here in the United States, but it's been great. And even like during the review process, like moving my phone number in between the Pro and the Air and then back again, totally seamless. It's really easy to do. It's just in settings, or if you're setting up a phone, it's in the setup process. And you just put the phones next to each other and you authenticate and it moves the eSIM. But even getting a new one. So when you know, setting up a new phone for somebody that's eSIM only, you know, getting in touch with the carrier, usually it's just through the carrier app or the website, or you can call and they can email you a link. Like, it's really pretty straightforward. And I don't miss the days of, you know, you get a new phone and the first thing you have to do is like jab a piece of metal in the side of it to get the SIM card out. It's, for me at least, it's been seamless. But how has your experience been?
I was skeptical of it to begin with. I feel like, you know, I like the physicality of the SIM card because that's something I can control. Right? You know, I can jab a piece of metal in and take the little chip out and move it to a different phone, and I know I've done it. Whereas eSIM, I can't really control that if that doesn't work. But you know, it's worked every time I've tried it. It's easier than moving a physical SIM, and so long as the carriers and everybody continues to make it easier, I think it's better. For our listeners that travel, I know I've heard from some of them that have multiple SIMs on a phone, and that's like not something you could do with a physical. I guess you could carry them with you and swap them as you got off the plane in a foreign country or something. But now you can actually have, as I understand it, multiple SIMs. I've never experimented with this, but I know people do it. So yeah, I think overall it's fine, but I was nervous to begin with.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job. You know, it is slightly uneven around the world. So like in China, only the iPhone Air supports eSIM because that's an eSIM only phone, and it delayed the launch of the iPhone Air. So it's at different stages in different parts of the world. And yeah, you can do that dual eSIM. I know people who have like a UK and a US one, right? And when they're here, they just make the US the primary. All that's supported in iOS. That was a feature that was mostly built for China and then has made it to the rest of the world. But yeah, it's been solid for me. I've never had issues with it. And I was slow to it. I didn't adopt it right away. I think I waited. It came out with the 10S, and I maybe waited till like the 12 Pro or something to do it. I waited a year, but it's been smooth.
I was worried about being able to swap it, and that was settled before I switched. Yep. We talked about the iPhone Air and how much you love it. It does have a really great design, in terms of hardware as an object. To make a thin and light iPhone, I think mission accomplished. Two questions I have for you is, would you have rather that it had a smaller screen? Because it's thin and light, but it's not small. I mean, it's got a big screen.
Yeah, I like the size. The Pro Max has gotten bigger, and I think the Pro Max is now too big for me. Now, I have not spent I have spent no time basically with the 17 Pro Max, but just in the store, right? It's like picking it up. It's like, oh, this is big. The Air feels like a good size to me. I like the screen size. It makes the Pro feel small. I was talking with Jason Snell about this because he also had both phones. And it's like when you go from the Air to the Pro does feel a little cramped.
Now, do you, because like for me, the Plateau is no problem. I've already got a big phone, add some stuff to the back. That's fine. But I think if you're going for an iPhone Air aesthetic, does that Plateau bother you? Because it's a pretty big hump on the back.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the iPhone Air is beautiful, and I did the white, so it's got the shiny edges, which is how my iPhone 10 I did the white. I think it's the iPod lover in me, like white and stainless, titanium in this case, but that's a fun look. But I think it's okay. I think they did a good job. It doesn't feel like it's just bolted on. They did a really nice job on the Air of rounding the corners off. It's the Air is the design of the Plateau is a bit more delicate than on the Pro in terms of how it looks. I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me at all. And depending on how big your hands are and how you hold your phone, and Pixel owners will know this, you can use the bottom lip of the Plateau to like help hold your phone. And if your hands are big enough, that can be a nice bonus.
And then, I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of stories about how the sales are, quote unquote abysmal, and people are really unhappy, and the iPhone Air is a failed experiment. I mean, what do you think about all that?
I don't know. It's always hard to know how accurate. Oh, Apple's ramping down production, or they've canceled this many numbers of phones. I don't really know. I think the newest reporting is now that it's not canceled, but maybe the iPhone Air 2 will be a 2027 deal. And that's one of my predictions when we get to that is a split release cycle. But it may be that it isn't refreshed immediately. That would be a bit of a bummer. So I do think the iPhone Air has promise. Some reporting says, well, they're going to delay it so they can add a second camera. That's certainly interesting to me. Although if it'd probably be the wide angle, like for a couple of reasons. One, the base phone has the regular and the wide angle, but the zoom, at least the way it's done on the Pro phones, requires more physical space because it has that tetraprism little reflector guy in there. There's no room for that in the iPhone Air, as far as I can tell. And so we'll see. I think that the future of it is definitely an interesting question. I don't read those stories as, production's been cut by 90% or whatever. I don't read those as gospel. I think that that's a hard thing to know for sure.
Yeah. If the rumor mill is going to say what it's going to say, but I certainly think Apple would understand going in that this is not going to be a huge seller, this phone. Like most people, like my daughter, she's going to buy the cheapest one. She's going to go in, or maybe not the cheapest one, but the standard phone. She's never going to go up to a Pro or an Air level device. So then you're looking at the subset of people that are willing to spend more, but they don't want but they're also willing to take the sacrifice of a worse camera and worse battery life in exchange for, style and lightness. I always thought that was going to be a small number, but I love that the phone exists. I mean, like you're discovering that, it's changing your relationship to the phone. Maybe it'll turn you into a better photographer because you're going to get your cameras out. I mean, I think that there's like the people I know who have this, it's the perfect device for them. And even if it only updated every 2 years, if we could count on it, that would be great. I mean, Apple's so silent about stuff like this. You just don't know, right? And I kind of wish they would be more transparent. Like at this point, they say, hey, we are going to make one in a couple of years if you want another one. But they're never going to do that. No. I'm sure there's good reasons, but but it would be nice for people that are enthusiastic about it to know that this is not a one and done phone.
Yeah. One other bit of iPhone hardware I wanted to touch base on is camera control. It was added a couple years ago as a way to navigate the camera user interface with just this like swipey, tappy button on the side of the phone. And having set up a bunch of phones over the last 6 months with testing and switching between phones, the default when you set up a phone now is just to use camera control to launch the app and take pictures. The half press and swipe over to get to zoom controls or to get to, white balance controls or whatever else is in there, that's off by default. And to turn it on, you can flip the switch in setup, or you can jump through 14 hoops in the settings app to turn it on. And I find that really interesting. My guess is Apple had the data and says that, well, most people are just using it to launch the camera and take a picture, and they're using, the UI for everything else. And I don't know. I look at this, and on one hand, they managed to fit camera control on the iPhone Air. Like, it's got one. It's very narrow, but it's there. I wonder, though, if this is going to go the way of something like 3D Touch. Like, it's around for a few generations, and then it kind of quietly goes away. Are you using camera control? What mode do you use it in? And do you think that it's a bit of is it a hit or is it a miss?
Okay, so when you say it, are you referring to just the existence of the button or the ability to like change your lens sizes on the button?
Well, let's start with that. So do you think that cramming a bunch of controls in there, a bunch of settings and options, how do you think that's gone?
Well, I mean, that was nerd catnip for me last year, of course. Everybody said, oh, it's too complicated. So I made a point of learning how to use it and did find myself using it. This year, when I set up my phone, I left it on the default where that went away. Mm-hmm. And when you were just talking about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a thing. And I don't use that anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, so now I push the button to turn it on and I push the button to take a picture. Will it go away? I don't know. I could see it going away. I mean, I guess that would save a few bucks if they made that button less capacitive or less interactive.
But it is tied to visual intelligence, which we're going to talk about later on. And so maybe if it weren't for Apple Intelligence features, it would be more likely to be chopped. But maybe they want it there for the visual search and the rest of the stuff is kind of bonus. I don't know.
Yeah. But just, on the bigger picture of there's a button now in your phone that will reliably launch the camera and take a picture. I use that every day. I love that button. And the other thing it's really handy for is QR codes. I've been working on the Wi-Fi and I have to re-enable a bunch of stuff. The QR code shows up on the screen, hit the button, you can show it in the Photos app, and then it's a QR code reader. I use that camera button. That's just about the only way I start the camera anymore. And I just hold the camera up, on its side and push the button, and I'm in. It feels like a traditional camera, but yeah, I would be sad if that button went away.
Yeah, I use it just to launch the camera and take pictures, but I use it every day, and it actually has replaced on the lock screen the camera button. I swapped that to it to launch Control Center because I use Control Center as like a HomeKit remote for my house, and I would be sad if it went away, but I also would not be surprised if at some point Apple lets it go.
Boy, I hope not. I hope not. I mean, I know there's a lot of rumors around the idea that they're going to eventually not have physical buttons, that everything will be capacitive on the side, help it make more waterproof. But I still would want that button there. I hope they keep it. Now, as to whether or not they keep it as a Zoom controller or whatever, I don't know if they're going to continue to do that forever.
Yeah. Last thing on buttons, what are you using your action button for?
I use it. I have a shortcut that runs, and it is contextually aware. So if I'm like, depending on which focus mode I'm in, it does different things. So like when I'm in podcasting mode, it turns the lights on. And when I'm in personal mode, it does different things. It does. And that one, it runs a choose from menu. It lets me pick a couple things. If I'm in Disneyland mode, it used to be a camera, but now it's a timer. Because we like to time how long it takes to get in on a ride. So I've just got different things I use it for, depending on which context I'm in.
Mine is also a shortcut, and it gives me a text box to type in, and whatever I save in that box goes into my task manager in the inbox. And so I use it to just very rapidly capture something, and then it also makes it due today, so I see it, right? Because like things get in the inbox and sometimes they're lost forever. And then I can, when I'm back at my computer or have more time, I can assign it an actual date or move it to a list or whatever. But using it to quickly capture tasks is, it's the fastest way I found on the iPhone, at least, to do that. And so that's what mine's doing.
Yeah, that's one of my options in some of my modes. But it's one extra step because I still have to press something on the screen.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform designed to help you succeed online. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling up your business, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim a domain name, showcase your offerings with a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. I've been using Squarespace forever. Several years ago, a friend of mine, a buddy I grew up with, was opening a gym, like a kickboxing place, and he needed a website. So, of course, I'm his techie friend. He called me. I said, man, we got to build it on Squarespace, because with Squarespace, we could do a lot of the stuff he needed to do. So a calendar of events, when his classes were going to be, lots of photos and video, and integration, right? So we could add in other components from other websites and embed them into his Squarespace site. It was really awesome, and it helped him get his gym up off the ground, or off the mat. I should have said off the mat, but you know what I mean. So Squarespace, you can get discovered quickly with integrated SEO tools. Nobody wants to build a beautiful website just for no one but their mom to see it. That's why every Squarespace website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more, so more people find your site through search engine results. And you can keep track of that with analytics. See the stats that really matter with intuitive built-in analytics. It makes it super easy to review website traffic, learn where to focus engagement, and track revenue from bookings, invoices, and product sales. Head on over to squarespace.com/MPU for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code MPU to save 10% off a website or a domain. That's squarespace.com/MPU. Again, you'll get 10% off, and you'll show your support for this show. Our thanks to Squarespace for supporting Mac Power Users and all of Relay.
Okay, we talked about the hardware. Let's talk about the software. How's Apple doing?
Man, iOS 26 will definitely be one that's remembered for its redesign, right? Liquid Glass is a huge thing. We're going to talk about that. But in actually going through it, it's also a really good feature release. Apple did a lot of stuff in iOS 26. Some of it is, I think, more impactful than others. And a lot of it is extending customization in the phone. And so new lock screen designs, right, where you can make the time really big, although that's not available on all fonts, at least in 26.1. I'd like Apple to make that even more capable. But the lock screen design stuff is really fun. And just, I can't help it. Just like peeping at people's lock screens just in the world. Like, I see a lot of lock screens with like a picture in really tall time behind somebody. I think people like it and enjoy it. And I think that's good. People should be able to make their devices their own. And with that, of course, is the home screen changes. Again, building on what was already there. But new options for tinting. The dark tinting looks way better than it did the first time around. And having the transparent icons, while not for me, I know they're popular. And I think, again, people should be able to do things the way they want to on their phones. And I think Apple's really made good strides there.
Yeah, we talked about this in the iOS 26 show. And the tinted icons have stuck with me. I've never turned them back to colored icons.
Okay.
And because again, focus modes to me have different color backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Podcasting is orange, because podcasts. But I really like that the icons don't conflict with it. And I know that you kind of lose that level of color recognition, easy access, but I geographically know where they're at. It just hasn't been a problem. And I think this is like you with your phone. I think the non-colored icons is going to be a thing for me going forward. Yeah, I really like that they're getting more customization. I wish they had more, but
same.
Every little bit helps. There's of course a great app out there that you could get that would help you customize your phone more. The Widgetsmith.
It's pretty good.
What?
So it's really good. People should go check it out.
Yeah, people do good stuff with Widgetsmith. A couple other things that have stood out for me is, this is silly, but the messages backgrounds. And so we've all done the thing like where you message the wrong person. Like if you're having multiple conversations and, I wonder how many people this has resulted like in divorce or firing. But my life is not that edgy. But either way, I still don't like, Steven, occasionally I'll send some like get bananas to Steven and he'll be like, Dave, what are you doing? And so what I've done is I've made distinct backgrounds for all the people I talk to frequently. Like with Steven, it's pine trees. I don't know. I just think of you as a pine tree kind of guy.
Okay.
And so if I want to message Steven and there's not pine trees in the background, I know I got a problem. I'm talking to the wrong guy. And so I've been able to do that. And the custom backgrounds are nice. They're not shared, so the other person doesn't see what you're doing. So you can go to your heart's delight and make them as weird as you want, and no problem. And it's a silly feature, but it has improved my life.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of fun. They've got some built-in tools to make your own. Again, you can just add an image. So I've got one that's just like a big Finder icon in the background with somebody.
Yeah,
it's pretty great, and it carries over most of the time to your other devices. I have noticed, at least still in the 0.1 releases, that sometimes my iPad just doesn't have the message backgrounds for some reason. And I had them on and then I turned them off, but I ended up turning them back on for the reason that you said, that contextually it's really a useful clue as to what's going on. And it's fun. It's just a fun thing to have in messages. And if you live in messages, like a lot of us do, it's pretty great. Another thing they've added in messages and the phone app is filtering. So you have more control over what you see kind of in your main inbox. And so you can filter spam, messages that it thinks is a spam. And looking through mine, there's a lot in there and the hit rate's pretty good. And then you've got also recently deleted if you want to see those. And I think it's a useful thing, as text message spam is definitely out of control, to be able to filter that stuff out.
Yeah, I find I err on the side of filtering too much out, and this year they've made it more possible than ever. I really like that. It's nice, more of this, Apple, please.
Mm-hmm.
And there's ways to make this smarter, I think. Like it's shocking to me how many voicemail messages get left for me from people that I don't deal business with, who are trying to get business or trying to scam me or something. It's just, I would like to have a system that makes filtering that stuff easier, or mass dealing with it, because I could go in every week and I got to like say report as spam, block. I'd like to have some sort of automation. I'd like to see them go a little further with this, and I think Apple would. They're interested with that. But you mentioned a new iPhone app. We also got a new design to the iPhone app after all these years this year.
Yeah, first time
did
ever.
Did that stick for you?
It did not. So, yeah, so the phone design is new. It's doing this thing where it is sort of collapsing your favorites and recents and like voicemail indication kind of all in one screen. And I just wanted it to be really clear, like if I had a missed call and it not be kind of lost in the other things. The other thing I just didn't like about it is I don't really like contact posters, right? The thing where you can have a picture that's sort of the background when someone calls. If you really want to have just a fun time, go to in Contacts in macOS Tahoe. And if someone doesn't have anything, so there's like their letters, the fields flicker really bad in front of the background. I don't know what's going on there. But the new phone design is very contact poster heavy, or your favorites are posters across the top. And a bunch of my favorites didn't have posters, right? Because it's like my parents or, non-tech people. And so then I would like add one for them, but then they would create a new one, and it wasn't for me. And so I did end up going back to the classic view.
I feel like your iPhoto completionist like personality comes out there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I've been using it. It's okay. Yeah, I got used to it.
Yeah. They also added call screening and hold assist. So this is an addition to voicemail preview, which I just used today. So just an hour before we recorded, I had a phone call from an unknown number in Florida. I sent it to voicemail, and then I tapped it so I could see the voicemail. It turns out it was somebody I needed to talk to. So I picked up, and people freak out when you do that. It's like we've lost the muscle memory of actual voicemail machines where kids, you would leave a message with somebody on tape, and then they could pick up and interrupt it. And people are like, it's you, whatever. But I do use the voicemail preview. That's been around for a couple of years. Call screening is different. So if you have call screening turned on, Siri will gather some information, and then you can decide to pick up, decline, or ask for more information. I have not used this. It's not, I don't get enough phone calls from unknown numbers that this is something I want to sort of go down the rabbit hole on. And this might be unfair, but we have a lot of history here. I've not always been impressed with Siri's ability to do certain things. And so I've been hesitant to use this feature.
Yeah. Me too. I just don't like, requiring them. It creates an expectation that I may check and actually pick it up. And for the most part, when I'm working, like, I keep bringing up focus modes today, but that plays a huge role in my life. And when I'm actually trying to get work done, I'm just not going to pick up the phone for just about anybody, except like if something's on fire from one of my kids or whatever. But I'm very hesitant to engage with the telephone when I'm working, and I'm fine with that. I called a friend the other day, and he picked up, and he's like, I'm really busy right now. Is it okay if we talk later? I'm like, yeah, but why'd you pick up? Just don't pick up next time.
Maybe they assumed something was on fire with you.
Yeah. Right? Hold assist is another kind of oddball feature where it waits on hold for you, and then it sends you a notification when it's time to return the call. And I've done this a couple times I did it with some utilities, and it worked. And it worked 2 out of 3 times. The third time they had hung up before I got back in, like the person.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're not there right now, okay, well, sorry, hang up. And then they go to the next one. And that wasn't good. But I feel like, the cat and mouse game of hold is continuing. And now we've got another weapon in our arsenal.
Yeah. I used it recently. I was on hold with the bank. I was like, this is a good time to try this. And it wasn't something super urgent, right? Like if they hung up on me, I could just call back and get in the phone tree or whatever. And so it offers this to you when it detects play music or hold music, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And I got a notification. I picked up. it worked for me, but I do think this could get to a point where if other automated systems or people, in call centers and stuff learn about this, that it could be detrimental. Like if someone interacts with this, they may just hang up because they don't want to wait for you to notice you had a notification. I just don't know. I don't know what the future of this holds. Pixel and some other Android phones have had similar features for a while. So we'll see. But in my experimentation, the Hold Assist does work, but I'm never going to fully rely on it either. Because there's that possibility that someone just doesn't want to deal with it on the other end.
When you think about the amount of time we sit around waiting on the phone for a service provider to pick up, and how it's just a natural for them to expect that we can be at their beck and call. If they can't deal with, the time it takes for me to push the button for this Hold Assist, that would be rich, honestly.
What do you mean? Just wait between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. for Comcast to show up.
Yeah, exactly. Audio recording got better this year.
Yeah. This is on iPadOS, right, where you can plug in an external microphone and there's some recording stuff. There's now gain control, which there wasn't at launch, which meant all your audio was blown out. Again, not something that I'm going to replace my Mac with in terms of podcasting, but I think there are a lot of people who use an iPhone to film, right? And maybe they're already doing something like using a Bluetooth mic or something, and this, could open up new opportunities for those people. I think it's a bigger deal on the iPad just because of the screen space, but very cool to see it on iOS as well.
Yeah, I'm doing a series right now on the Mac Sparky Labs on transcription and dictation because, it's just evolving a lot right now with AI tools. And one of the first videos I did involved using the Apple tools and using now the voice recorder with the built-in transcription. It's shockingly good. I mean, there's a lot of services you can pay for. They're not cheap, but they're good. But you could also do it entirely for free on a private device with Apple's built-in dictation. I mean, it's not as good as some of the ones you pay for, but it's still really good. And I feel like just that combination with the audio recorder is something special. But, you can just sit there with your phone, open voice memos. I think that's what it's called, voice memos, voice, and hit the button, talk for a while, and then you'll have a transcript on device within moments of hitting the stop button.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And really, I mean, the dictation stuff, I think, can really get better and better as Apple Intelligence gets better and better. So I'm excited to see what that could hold.
Yeah, we talked about on the show after iOS released that you can customize the snooze timer, and also use swipe to turn it off rather than just tap it, which is good. Like when you're just waking up, if you accidentally think you're hitting snooze but you hit stop.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that's the reason why the new interface exists. Have you changed anything, or what are you doing with it?
I'm using the default snooze time.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out something that once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's got like the yellow kind of orangey button, and then you have the slide to turn it off. The top of the slide button reflects the orange color of the button above it as it would in liquid glass, but the yellow button fades away, and so you end up with the sliding part still having a reflection of something that's not there.
Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for telling me that.
What I think is cool is that this UI, like the slide to do something, is also coming to reminders in 26.2, which may be out by the time the show is out. Right now, it's kind of in late beta. Yeah. And so if you have a really important task, there's now a new option in reminders to show this UI instead of a regular notification. And I think that's going to be great for a lot of people. I do hope that this becomes an option for third-party apps that, not by default, right? I don't want my phone doing this all the time, but for the handful of things that really matter, like maybe medication reminders, or again, like I think reminders is a great, any task manager is a great thing. Like, hey, I really need to make this phone call right now. This UI puts more importance on things, so we'll see how it evolves over time.
It's a good year for software.
It is. It absolutely is. The last thing I want to mention is CarPlay has some updates in 26. I really am enjoying widgets in CarPlay. You manage them from settings on the phone, and any widget that's on your phone works in CarPlay. You can do stacks. And so I really like having the weather and my calendar and a countdown from Widgetsmith or whatever in CarPlay. And it's just an additional screen. It doesn't, the home screen on the CarPlay hasn't changed, right? It's the map and your controls and then a grid of icons. It's a third screen in addition to those. But I think it's really great. And I think that widgets will only continue to spread, but in CarPlay, it's a great addition. My pain point with CarPlay, I wrote an article about this a while back and called CarPlay's Messages app for iOS 26 is bad. Look, sometimes you just got to pull the Band-Aid off in the headline. It's the way that it handles favorites doesn't make sense to me. Like, go read the article. It doesn't preserve the layout that you see on every other Apple platform for favorites and messages. In 26.2, there's an option to turn favorites off. And so it's like how CarPlay used to be, which is your most recent ones at the top, which is probably a better design anyways for the car, but it doesn't fix my initial complaint. But, maybe in the future. But in general, CarPlay is what it always has been, which is good. And widgets really make it feel much more alive.
Nice. All right. We have talked now for a year about Apple Intelligence. They announced it at WWC a year and a half ago. What's the state of Apple Intelligence as we get to the end of 2025?
I feel like there's a lot of question marks. Just as we're recording this, John Giannandrea, who has been in charge of AI at Apple since 2018, is on his way out the door. Who knows?
But in fairness, he hasn't been in charge of AI at Apple now for about 6 months.
Yeah,
right?
They brought Mike Rockwell in, who did the Vision Pro. So the features that are here now, let's go through some of them. I think the one that people maybe most associate with these sorts of tools are the writing tools, right? Hey, summarize this text, change the tone of voice in this text. This is not something I use. I don't think it's something you use either as writers, but people do get benefit from this, and it's on device, which is great. You're not, sending your company email to ChatGPT or something. Not something I have a lot of experience with, but definitely something that I think people use for sure.
I feel like, there's two stories about Apple Intelligence. There's a bunch of little features that they've added. And this is what Apple always goes to when people complain. They're like, hey, Apple Intelligence isn't what you promised. And they're like, what are you talking about? We shipped like 12 features with Apple Intelligence. And they did, but it's all the low-hanging fruit. It's the little writing tools.
Yeah.
And in fairness to Apple, for a lot of people, this is really good stuff. I mean, my wife has got the remove people from the background disease now because she got my phone from last year, so she's got AI on it, and she loves to take pictures of the kids like at Disneyland and then like remove every other person. So it's like we're in there at 4 a.m. and the park is empty. And I don't know why, but that's a thing she does now. And so I think there's a lot of little features that have shown up that people like.
Yeah. Yeah. Cleanup in photos is great. I use it too. And I know how to do that in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And I have Photoshop, but it's really good. And you just kind of, it will suggest things that it finds, and you can draw little lines around things you don't want. It does a good job. I don't think I've had it truly mangle a photo. Like sometimes it's a little bit weird, but I think Apple's done a really good job with that feature.
Depending on the background stuff, you can sometimes tell, but a lot of times you can't. And it's great. So I think that's kind of a success. Some of these others, less so. I feel like Image Playground, if they expected it to be a success, I don't think it ever has been. No. I've never seen anybody use Image Playground in a non-ironic way at this point. They did add with this year ChatGPT support, so you can use ChatGPT to make your image for you if you want. But I feel like that was kind of a stunt. They spent a lot of time on it when they announced it, and I just don't think that is very successful. And I still have weird feelings about image generation through artificial intelligence anyway. So
same.
It's just I don't feel like it's that good. The notifications has been on a journey. They are getting better, but they still sometimes get it wrong. The notification summaries, but I think I can see why that exists, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
This low hanging fruit stuff they've done good. Like the memories feature in photos, I think is great. You put in a couple words, it makes a memory. That is a successful implementation. My favorite by far, and the one that I think everybody listening should really make an effort to try and use, is the Apple. Was it private cloud server, PC? What do they call it again?
Private cloud compute.
Yeah, PCC. Developers cannot access it, but users can. And if you make a shortcut, you can send a prompt to the private cloud compute server, which is exactly what the name says. It's a private AI server with a LLM in it that will do work for you. It's not as good as the frontier models by far, but it's good enough for a lot of things. Like I was, for the longest time, I like to dictate journal entries sometimes, but when you dictate, you ramble. And having an AI go through and clean that up, not rewrite it for you, but clean it up or maybe move things around to make logical sense. I could do that with a frontier model, but do I want to give Anthropic or Sam Altman all my journal entries? Not really, and I'm finding with experimentation that PCC is good enough to do this in a private way. And so that stuff they're delivering. That said, I still can't feel like that Apple Intelligence is a bit of a broken promise. And I think that's, it all goes back to the presentation about how Siri was finally going to get better. And there's this dream that we all have, right? We have these Apple devices. They know a ton about us, and we're not particularly eager to share that with Google or Anthropic or OpenAI. But if it was on device, private to us, we'd love to put all that information to use. And the updated Siri would be the platform or vehicle to do that. And for a lot of reasons, Apple let Siri linger for a decade. And now they're playing catch up, and we still haven't seen the results of it.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely right. And with John Ginandrea stepping down from Siri, Mike Rockwell taking over, Apple has hired somebody new to run AI who they were at Microsoft for like 5 months. I don't know what happened there, but at Google for a long time, Google DeepMind, sort of their early AI days.
Yeah.
So we'll see, if you're going to do this and if you're going to potentially use Google Gemini to power some of it, which is the rumor, then having the guy from Google running it is probably not a bad idea. But yeah, the further we get away from it, the more bananas that WWDC feels, where they announced all this stuff. It's like, man, very little of this was ready. A lot of the things that we now say are pretty good weren't good the first time around. I mean, they had to turn off notification summaries for news apps because it was getting things wrong in news apps, and you were reading a headline that just wasn't true.
Yeah.
And it can still, and I get it. It's easy to dunk on it, but you still see screenshots online of like, I had 2 messages and it interpreted that, my whole family was dead. It's like, no, that's not at all what it said, but LLMs can only go so far. And so there are rough edges still. And Apple is no doubt in catch-up mode. What's interesting to me in thinking about this is that there was a period of time where I think a lot of people thought, well, AI is going to be in these startup companies like Perplexity and OpenAI, and the platform vendors are just going to have to buy them, right? And that's kind of what Microsoft did, right? They have a huge investment in OpenAI. OpenAI powers a lot of the stuff Microsoft is doing with Copilot, but Microsoft is building their own stuff now, and I think eventually we'll want to be untangled from that. But Google built it in-house. And Apple, I think, is closer to the Microsoft on this scale, where they're going to outsource at least some of it for now until their models are ready. But eventually, I think that this is going to be a platform owner sort of technology. ultimately that's how these things go, that the platform owner controls it. And what that means for OpenAI and Perplexity and these other companies, I don't know. But we are in this weird state right now where Apple in particular is very publicly behind and is in the situation partially in a self-inflicted way that they announced things that weren't ready. It's just very, very different from how Apple normally operates.
Well, yes and no, because Apple is a conservative company too. And I think they kind of had a wait and see attitude about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, I mean, one thing we're seeing here at the end of 2025 is it seems like now this is turning into more of a commodity, and they can get this technology for a lot less than they would have if they built it from scratch. So they actually may be rewarded by the market for doing nothing. It's really unclear, but it seems like the LLM acceleration has slowed down a bit.
Yeah.
Which allows Apple at an 80% solution to still be very useful to its users. And if they can keep it on private cloud compute. I mean, one of the rumors right now is that they've made a deal with Google, and PCC is going to be running a Gemini engine behind it. And if that's the case, I think that would be great if I could do that privately.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they're necessarily going to get in trouble here. They may actually be rewarded at the end because they didn't spend $100 billion, building this themselves. But as a user, I am nothing but frustrated over Siri. And that has been the case for way too long.
Yeah.
And they knew this was a big deal at least a year and a half ago, when they announced it. And I just feel like they just have never given it whatever. I mean, they're $1 trillion company. Presumably they've got the ability to find the people in the company or hire the people from outside the company that know what they're doing to make Siri no longer a joke. And that's the big reason why I'm frustrated with the state of Apple intelligence, because it still is. And it sounds like early next year, we're going to start getting some real movement on this, and it's going to get better. And I would love nothing better than a year from now, the state of platform to brag about Siri, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. Siri was behind already.
Yeah.
And then infusing assistance with AI technology, it moved the field. It moved the goalpost so far down the field. I'm not sure Apple could see them. And that's rough when you're already perceived, or I think in reality, not as good as your competitors. And then they all move to something new and you're kind of left alone. It's rough, but
the dream remains, right? Because if we had a smart Siri on that level with our personal data in a private way, we would be able to use AI in a way that nobody else can.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
And that's all that, I'm going to stop.
Okay. I did want to loop back to one thing. Do you have notification summaries turned on?
Yes, I do. If I wasn't Max Sparky, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're oddball. I mean, I was just reading one the other night and I'm like, what does that even mean? And so I think I'd rather just have a few words from the actual person. The only reason I do it is so I can keep up with it. This is one where I'm taking one for the team.
Yeah. You're taking one for me. I have them off.
Yeah.
Okay. Another component of iPhone software, of course, is Liquid Glass. When I think about Liquid Glass, I think about the iPhone first and then the other platforms second. Surely the iPhone is where most people will encounter Liquid Glass. And it's really been interesting in just talking to my non-tech friends and family members and stuff, how a lot of people don't really even notice it. I think in hindsight, I think one reason iOS 7 was so disruptive is that it moved a lot of stuff around. And Liquid Glass basically moved very little around, right? Toolbars are still at the bottom, notification center, control center, they're all still where they always were. It's just, I don't want to say just, I know it was a monumental amount of work, but it is just a redesign. It's not a rethinking, it's not a re-architecting, right? Developers aren't burning down their user interfaces and starting over. They are just modernizing them with Liquid Glass. And I think that has lessened the blowback to this in the public. I don't think at all, just my perception, that iOS 26 has faced the pushback that iOS 7 did. Now, I will say with a huge caveat, it doesn't seem like Apple has pushed the button to let every phone in the world know that iOS 26 is available. They quit doing that years ago. It used to be back in the day, the iOS release was out, everybody saw the badge, and you could update it to it immediately. And they have not done that in the past many years, where it's sometime in November or December, people who aren't updated will get a notification that, hey, iOS 26 is available to you. So there are still, like, just looking at the metrics of my apps, like, there's a lot of people still on iOS 18, but I don't necessarily think that's a pushback against the design. I think that has been a much quieter feedback loop than maybe some people feared.
Yeah, I mean, iOS 7 kind of was a perfect storm. They had a change. Johnny Ive took over software and made a lot of changes really fast. And, it not only was it different, but it also was unstable. I mean, it was buggy, but it was a very unstable release. So everybody was unhappy with that. And I how they have Apple University. I suspect that that's probably a module there about how that was a failure. And I think that they avoided all of those self-inflicted injuries here. It's fairly stable. The like you said, they, like my family I installed it for them. They're like, oh yeah, that looks nice. Mm-hmm. That was kind of their reaction, and that was it. All of the ringing over the visibility and stuff. And I know for certain people that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
But for most people, what they did is just kind of gone over fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd agree.
And they've tweaked it, right? They added the option in 0.1 to really turn down the opacity. And then in 26.2, there's basically a slider on the lock screen of like between glass and solid, which is fascinating. I think you could do that toggle system wide, and it probably mostly be okay. They have been working on it. They have been tweaking it. A lot of the issues that we spoke about with Tahoe were like things just look bad or like don't make sense. Like, is this sidebar above or below the content? I can't tell. The iPhone doesn't really suffer from any of that because there's no overlapping windows, right? It's just one thing at a time. And because they didn't fundamentally change navigation or where things are in the operating system, I think it's been pretty smooth. And I really have come to like it. While I don't love it all on the Mac, I like almost all of it on the iPhone. And I've left it the most transparent mode. Like, I tried the tinted thing, but it just looked old to me, basically instantly. And I don't have the pain points of readability or legibility in some places that some people might have. And so for me, at least, I have it basically as it is. And I think it's fun. I think it's fun to scroll photos and like the buttons at the bottom of the screen, like refract and reflect that light around. I think, and those colors around. I think it's fun.
Yeah, me too. And like I've said, I've actually been kind of a fan of the new update all around. I don't think it's that bad. And I do really like the way they've been so responsive. We talked about this with respect to the iPad, but also the Mac and the iPhone. They're trying to get it dialed in, and they're making big steps now, and then the steps will get a lot more refined over time. But this will be fine. I am kind of curious with software. I guess let's get to the future, because let's get the future predictions, but let's start with software, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Like where is the platform headed? Like, we've got like the underlying security stuff. They've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years kind of locking that down. The Apple Silicon revolution and Swift UI is in place now. They've got the UI look that they want, and I'm guessing that's here for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. Where is it going? What does the next versions of iOS look like? What do we need now?
It's strange to think about that, because in hindsight, it's very clear from like iOS 7 to iOS 18 where they went, right? Fonts got thicker. They adjusted the transparency. They redid Control Center. It's like a very clear lineage. And I think, it's hard to remember exactly, but I think back in the day, we all kind of knew what iOS 7 needed to do, right?
Yeah.
With 26 and with Liquid Glass, I find it actually very hard to think about what they should do user interface wise. I mean, I think they're going to continue to improve Liquid Glass around the edges, but I do think it's here to stay. But I just have the sense that Liquid Glass will not last as long as the previous design iterations did. There is something about it that feels trendy. Now, I say that Android is so far the other direction right now. Liquid Glass is a big break from the rest of the industry, but is Liquid Glass still going to be novel and interesting in 5 years? I'm not sure it will be, and I like Liquid Glass. And so I find it really hard to project into the future in terms of UI and design and where they may go.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to think about. But I do think they're going to continue to make iOS more powerful. I think if there's a folding phone, we're going to see the lines between iOS and iPadOS blur a little bit more. But that's more form factor than like fundamental change, I think.
Yeah. I think in the operating system, just to pick up on the Apple Intelligence thread, it needs to be much more adaptable to large language models and artificial intelligence in ways that are useful to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't reminders tell me the things or figure out what's important or, help me plan my calendar?
Mm-hmm.
Like, become that administrative assistant that, rich people have one. You just hire a person, but most of us can't afford it. So like, why can't we go there with the amount of data it has access to? I think this is something that if they really got it together, if they got somebody truly innovative that was willing to push the limits, and if the management there was allowing them to do that, I think we could have a truly special operating system because of the trust of Apple, their focus on privacy, and an adequate artificial intelligence. We could have something truly great. And I feel like all the pieces are in place if they'll just give it the resources and build it. So that's my hope, kind of meta going out.
Yeah.
What about the hardware? What are your predictions for, where we're going with the hardware?
I mean, there's a lot of smoke around the folding phone fire.
Yeah.
I think that's near. I do think Apple, I think there's a possibility that they split the iPhone releases. So Samsung does this, and Google does this as well, where they don't release all their phones for the year at once. And I could see a world very easily where the fall becomes the Pro Max, and the Fold, which I did this on 512. I'll say it here too. I think the Fold is called the iPhone Ultra. I don't have any sources. I just think it is. But Pro Max, and folding phone in the fall. And then the spring is maybe the regular phone, the E phone, and maybe the Air. Something like that. Maybe not those lines exactly, but something where the phone gets a big holiday quarter, but then it also has spring sales. Now, the risk, if I'm Tim Cook, is I don't want to do anything where my holiday sales quarter is going to look worse year over year. And moving some new phones out of the holiday quarter into the spring will do that. How do they manage that? How do they talk about it? Is that a reason not to do it? I don't know. But I do think the iPhone itself in a vacuum would benefit from a couple of launches a year, not all of this at once, especially if the folding phone is real and the Air sticks around and you still have the E. Like, you got 6 phones all of a sudden, right? You've got E, regular, Pro Max, folding, and Air. If all of those stick around, that's just too much for September. Like, I'm scared of that September, man. As someone who covers this stuff, like, I think the release is beneficial. Whether or not they actually do it for financial reasons is unclear to me.
And I think another thing Tim Cook could say, even if the quarter is a little lower because of this, is like, we are anticipating a nice bonus next year. Also, something Wall Street is very much worried about is Apple's reliance on China, and this would allow them to diversify manufacturing if they were able to split up the phone so you've got two different launch sequences. Maybe that makes it easier to pull some of the manufacturing out and have more manufacturing in other places. I mean, I can see a lot of reasons why this is a good idea, and there's a lot of rumors around this as well, and it's been going on for like 6 months, these rumors. So I think maybe that's headed our way.
Could be.
The something that I think is going to be really interesting, and I'm going to talk about this in the Max Sparky Labs, is next year there's going to be two premier phones. I think the folding phone, or the Ultra, which is a great name by the way, is definitely coming, as is the iPhone Pro. And like, they're different trade-offs. You get the iPhone Pro, you get the best possible camera system, probably the best battery life. And you get the folding phone, you probably get a worse battery life, worse cameras, but you get a giant, kind of iPad mini class screen in your pocket. I think that's interesting, right? Because it's no longer the case of you just saying, I want the best phone, the best iPhone money can buy.
Yeah.
Well, that depends, because there's two really good ones and they're different phones. And I think that's going to be really fun to observe and be a part of when that becomes a reality.
I think so too. The Air sort of tiptoes towards that a little bit, but that's dependent on what you find valuable in a phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, the folding phone, it does introduce such a different dynamic into the iPhone lineup. Now, I think that dynamic is lessened if the folding phone is $2,000. Right? Like,
price. It's going to be more money for sure.
Price,
3 screens.
Yeah. Price or features may lessen that impact.
Yeah.
But it is going to be interesting. I mean, even this year, I think we talked about this. The Pro Max got no coverage in the keynote, basically. It was like they talked about the iPhone 17 Pro, and then like the Pro Max was mentioned. Part of that was they're the same right now. The Pro Max doesn't have features, the Pro doesn't, or whatever. But it struck me as like, oh, they're collapsing the Pro and Pro Max into one phone in terms of the way they talk about it, right? Not in the way that is marketed or sold, right? They still exist separately, but they talk about the iPhone Pro as one thing. It just happens to come in two sizes. In fact, I could see a world where the name Pro Max goes away and there's just two sizes of the iPhone Pro, like there are two sizes of the MacBook Pro and MacBook Air and iPad Pro and iPad Air, right? That it's just, there's two sizes of it. And maybe in the way that we talk about the phones, that's enough to simplify things. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think overall of the iPhone? How does it stand, the state of the platforms in 2025?
Man, I think they're killing it. The hardware is so good this year. I mean, it's really the story as the Mac, right? The hardware is really good. They've diversified the hardware in really interesting ways. And even with the redesign, iOS 26 feels pretty solid. I think the blemish of Apple Intelligence is noticed most on the face of the iPhone, but it's also on all the other products too. But all in all, I think it's a really, really solid iPhone year for them.
Yeah, I love the fact that they made the iPhone Air. That is it's a strange product. It's a high end, thin and light phone. It's not a budget phone. And I love the fact that these rumors are out there about a folding iPhone. I want them to take some risks and experiments with the iPhone line, because I think they need to. You can't just keep making the same phone forever. And it seems like we're in the middle of one of those periods where they're being more experimental.
Mm-hmm.
I love that they made an orange one. I think it's great, and the software is doing good. I agree with you on the Apple Intelligence, but I'm without any evidence kind of optimistic that AI and Siri are going to get really good this year, or at least good enough to be way more useful. And I'm very curious to see what happens, but I know it's affecting their share price, which obviously gets their attention. And I'm very sad that that's what it took, but at least they're putting, wood behind the arrow now on AI and Siri. And I think we're going to see results.
Yeah. One little exercise I thought of in preparation for this, the iPhone famously was introduced as 3 products: a phone, an iPod, an internet communicator. Right? He did the thing. We've all seen it. The icons spin around faster and faster. Yeah. Are you getting it? It's not 3 devices. It's 1 device. Just epic mountaintop level Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
What 3 words sum the phone up today? You know, if the phone were to be introduced as it was with all the history it has, but having not existed, I don't know. I've created a time loop there, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a phone, an iPod, an internet communicator anymore. What do we think the 3 words are?
Yeah. Well, you pick 3, so you go first.
Yeah, so I picked an app platform because internet communicator, no one knew what that meant, and no one still knows. It's a very internet communicator sounds like a term from the 90s that somehow made it into the deck. But an app platform, I think camera is huge. The third one is where I struggle. Maybe it's communications, maybe it's AI. I don't really know what the third one is, but I feel like apps and camera are pretty solid picks.
Yeah, I'm going to channel Katie for a minute. I'm going to say they've made it into a tricorder. I mean, it's really, it's kind of the catch-all device in your pocket. And the 3 for me would be apps, camera, and communications. I mean, I communicate with it a lot. And so I feel like that's got to be one of the 3. It's certainly not a phone primarily. No. For me. And the AI, we'll see, I mean, AI could also fit into the apps kind of stuff. But just like over the weekend, I was dealing with a technical problem, which will be the future source of the future more power users. I don't want to get into it today, but I was dealing with something. And at one point, I just turned on Gemini because I was working on cables and just started talking to it about settings and things I was doing. Mm-hmm. And it was like having a little expert, there with me as I was working in the gears. And so that is something that you do with uniquely because your phone is in your pocket. You can pull it out any time and have an expert. I'm using air quotes for that because sometimes AI is not expert, even though it thinks it is. But you know what I mean? You've got some feedback person you can talk to at any hour to help you out with stuff. But yeah, I like that question. Let's go back and ask that again next year and see where we're at with that.
Apps, camera, communications. I think that's good.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Indeed. Go to Indeed.com/MPU and join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Back in my lawyer days, I brought so much pain on myself by rushing the hiring process, not getting the person with the right skills and the right personality right from the beginning. Taking the time to hire the right person makes all the difference. And guess what? With Indeed, this week's sponsor, it doesn't take that much time. Are you hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post even seen on other sites. Give your job the best chance to be seen with Indeed's sponsored job posts. They help you stand out and hire quality candidates who can drive the results you need. Sponsored jobs boosts your post for quality candidates, so you can reach the exact people you want faster, and it makes a big difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored job posts directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a higher than non-sponsored jobs because you reach a bigger pool of quality candidates. Join the 1.6 million companies that sponsor their jobs with Indeed. And when it comes to finding those specific needs, you can really slice that onion thin. If I was looking for a new editor, I'd go to Indeed and I'd be very specific, not just can edit audio. I'd say, I need someone who's edited conversational podcasts for at least 3 years. The more specific you get, the better candidates you get. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, you only pay for results. No monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, just a boost whenever you need to find quality talent fast. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. Why shouldn't that be you? In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes Less stress, less time, more results now with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to the Mac Power users will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job premium status it deserves. To help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/MPU. Just go to INDEED.com/MPU right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Mac Power users. Indeed.com/MPU is the URL. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. And our thanks to Indeed for sponsoring the Mac Power users and Olive Relay.
Okay, up next is Apple TV. Let's start with the hardware because Apple TV refers to hardware, software, and a streaming service.
Yeah.
We'll get there. The current Apple TV box, Apple TV 4K, the current one launched in November of 2022. I had to look this up. I couldn't remember. It's powered by the Apple A15 Bionic from the iPhone 13 line in 2021. Two models, $129 for 64 gig and Wi-Fi, $149 for 128 gigs of storage with Wi-Fi and Ethernet. That's the one I have because I wanted Ethernet to my Apple TV. And then, of course, the new remote. The Siri remote had a time where it wasn't great. I think the new one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Really,
it's fine.
Yeah.
How's it?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not bad. That's all I wanted. Yeah. Not bad. And I really, I've had a lot of Apple TVs. The Apple TV is television in my house. Like we have some streaming apps, like everything runs through there. And really, other than the price, I don't have any complaints about the Apple TV hardware as it stands. It is on the expensive end of streaming boxes. You can get an Amazon Fire TV or Roku for as low as about $35, but each of those lines get into $100, $130, $140. So the Apple TV kind of sits at the high end, but it's high-end hardware. But I do think there is room for Apple to make this thing less expensive.
Yeah. I mean, they flirted with trying to make it like a gaming device. They were selling controllers, I don't know if you recall, and trying to, when they have these events saying, oh, look at these games you can play on it. And I think that they should go the other direction and not even try to make it like play games. Don't worry about giving the latest and greatest hardware, except to the extent that AI starts to play a role in this, which I could see. But to me, the one thing I would love to see change is I'd love to see the entry price be $99. Just get it down to $99, $30 cheaper than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that would be really nice. It'd make it a lot easier for people to get into it. Like you, I'm a big fan of it as my interface. I feel like I have some other TVs here. A couple of them I've hooked up to the internet to do like software updates on or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it just feels so bad when you work in those interfaces. And so there's so much data being collected through them. And washing out of all of that, just using an Apple TV to get in, it's worth $100, honestly, just to have a good user interface on top of your TV.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they need to change the world here. They just need to keep doing what they're doing and get that price down.
Yeah. In terms of software, tvOS, it does feel stagnant to a degree. Like it's been basically the same for a long time, but I think that's actually okay. When you look at these other streaming boxes, they're all basically just a grid of icons, right? Yeah. I don't necessarily want Apple to get weird with the user interface on tvOS, and it got the most minimum of liquid glass updates possible. Maybe there's room for more of that, but I think it gets the job done. I know some people have complaints about the player, like the player interface and how it works with the remote. And honestly, that comes down to Apple's struggle with third-party apps on Apple TV, on tvOS, where a lot of apps don't support a lot of the native things in tvOS.
Do you think, is there a world where Apple could be more proactive and say, if you want to be on our TV, we're going to make the app for you, or we're going to make the interface, or we're going to have a player kit UI that you have to incorporate. I feel like if they could, they would do that, but I suspect that's not even possible right now.
Yeah, I don't think they have the footing for it. I mean, Netflix and YouTube don't even have apps on the Vision Pro. Like, I think their relationship with these companies, especially now since Apple is in the content business itself, I think those relationships are probably pretty strained in places. You know, famously, Netflix doesn't integrate with the TV app. They wanted their content to be just in their app and not be intermixed with other things. I think it's a mistake. Netflix did accidentally turn that on for a second and then turned it back off. Everyone was very excited and then very sad about that. But I think Apple is kind of beholden to these other companies right now. I mean, not using the media player is pretty bad, I think. But then you have like profiles and automatic sign-in with Apple ID, which is a new thing this year. Those features just don't show up in third-party apps very often. And that's a bummer, and it does make the experience worse for users. But from the other side, if I'm Hulu or I'm Netflix or I'm YouTube, I want my customers, because they're not Apple's customers, they're my customers, I want them to have the same experience everywhere. So if you sit down to use Disney Plus on an Apple TV, a Roku, an iPad, the desktop, I want that experience to be the same everywhere. And I think that is of higher importance to those companies as opposed to, let's be super native everywhere we are.
Yeah. But as a user, it's frustrating. Like there's 3 different ways to turn on captions depending on how the software has been implemented. And each app, you've got to kind of like figure your way through. And then some apps are just bad. Like the YouTube app is where I probably consume the most video, and it's kind of bad on the iPhone, on the Apple TV. I mean, sometimes it just stops working or it just hangs up. That's the only app that I regularly force quit on my Apple TV, and it's like, come on, Google. But maybe I could see Google saying, well, we don't really want you to have a great experience on Apple TV. We want you to come to the website where we can get way more data, and we want you in our rose garden, not theirs.
And that brings us to Apple TV, the streaming service, no longer Apple TV Plus. Yeah. Honestly, I think having 15 things on name the same thing is mostly okay. Like people get it. I was curious about the pricing of the Apple TV streaming service. It started at $4.99 a month back in 2019, and basically every 2 to 3 years there's a price increase, and now we're at $12.99 a month. That's something that we've seen everywhere, right? Like the Hulu, like I pay for the Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus combo, and it's way more expensive than it was. YouTube TV has gone up. Like all of these have become more expensive. Apple's no different there. Which is a bit of a bummer because Apple has other giant businesses that could offset this. And if you're maybe some of these other companies, you don't. But that is just kind of part of the deal with these services. They have gotten more expensive over time.
Yeah. Eddie Q recently was interviewed where he kind of restated their commitment to this business. There were some questions. Will Apple lose interest in Apple TV, the channel content, and just, go back to not making content? And then he also addressed the question there about ad-based revenue. Like, will they add ads?
Yeah. And the quote from Q is, "Nothing is planned at this time. Again, I don't want to say no forever, but there are no plans." And that is a way, I mean, if you look at the pricing structure, something like Netflix seems to make more money through the advertising. And so they incentivize that, right? They incentivize a cheaper plan. And if you have the money and really don't want to see ads, you can pay more. It does seem a little bit at odds with Apple's brand to have ads in Apple TV, but it's the norm everywhere else. And so I don't think there would be, outside of our circles, I don't think there would be a huge, most people would if they want Apple TV, they would pay less and see the ads, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm glad there's not ads in Apple TV, but I don't think it's the end of the world if they add them at some point.
Yeah. In terms of the content, what do you think?
Man, they're killing it. Apple's done such a good job here. You know, they hired in some industry people who've done a really good job. They've really carved out sort of two areas, sci-fi and sports. And so, you know, they have the F1, the movie, they have rights to F1, they have more F1 content planned. I think Apple wants to be the place you go for F1 content, at least in the US. But sci-fi is so good. I mean, I have not seen a sci-fi show, and again, I like sci-fi. I don't love it. It's not necessarily my favorite genre, but everything I've seen on Apple TV that is in this arena has been good. I mean, we listed some favorites. You know, Silo, Severance, For All Mankind, and Dark Matter are all four incredible sci-fi series. And you know, you mentioned Foundation, which is also very, very good. I think they've really are doing a good job there.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been, Foundation is kind of a big ask to do because it's just the nature of the books. They're so big, and they didn't like follow it exactly, but they found a way to represent it in a good way. And I don't know that many people would have given it the money or time that Apple has. So I think they're really good. They feel to me like kind of the new HBO in a way. Like the stuff on there is going to be pretty good, you know. And that is the case. They continue to make really good content. So I hope they continue with it.
Mm-hmm. I think they will. I think they find value in it. And then, you know, there's also a lot of feel good stuff, right? There's Ted Lasso, there's Shrinking. There's a lot of other sort of other areas as well. I don't want to paint it as just a sci-fi and sports thing, but I think they've had very few misses on Apple TV, and that's very impressive, especially thinking about where they came from, starting it. But they hired experts, right? And this is weird for Apple. Apple likes to promote from within. But when they came to this, I think they realized, oh, we can't do this, right? So they hired some people from HBO and like, hey, here's a mountain of money. Go buy a bunch of content. Go make a bunch of content. And they've really, I think, succeeded so far.
Which is kind of exactly what they should have done with the AI revolution.
Yep. Yep. But they view AI as software, and they don't want to use outside software.
Yeah.
Right. As far as the future, I think they're going to keep making great content. I do think on the hardware front, the Apple TV itself feels due, if anything, so they don't have to make A15 Bionics anymore. Maybe they got a bucket full of them still, and when they're done, they'll move it to something else. It's not for lack of power, and it's these apps. I mean, if you remember back in 2015 when they announced kind of the new generation Apple TV, like the future TV is apps, and that just, in some ways that was really true, but in other ways it's not. Like gaming is not big on tvOS. The whole idea that you would have like regular apps on your TV and like scroll through Zillow or shopping apps or whatever else, like some of those things exist, but it's not a big deal. Most of this is media streaming. You don't need anything more powerful than what you have, but at some point, just for efficiency's sake on Apple's side, at some point it will get an update. And again, I think we would both love to see something less expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I just went through recently and audited my apps, and I deleted like half of them because they're just in the way from between me getting to the HBO app or whatever, and don't really use them. Something when they announced the Apple TV way back in the day when Steve Jobs was around, and they had the egg fryer Apple TV, the one you can cook an egg on. They said this is a hobby for us, this Apple TV thing.
Yeah.
It feels to me like they've never got beyond that, particularly with the hardware. Like, I feel like if Apple could really bring its chops to bear on the hardware and software, that it would be a better experience now. But it feels to me like they kind of get it to a certain point and then they just leave it there for 2 or 3 years and then they'll come back and touch it again. But what if there was like a dedicated team to just making the best experience possible with the Apple TV? I don't know what it would be, but I think it would be better than what we have. And I wish that was the case.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by DevonThink. DevonThink To Go 4.0 Kepler is here, released just this Tuesday. It brings Mac-level power to iOS, closing the feature gap. Named after astronomer Johannes Kepler, it has AI integration throughout and a built-in chat system named Global Chat Plus. It also has per-document conversations and can remember up to 100 chats. The AI can summarize documents, extract text from images, generate images, auto-tag, and rename files. The AI-based assistant allows for writing queries in plain English instead of complex search syntax. The new versioning system has a ton of great features. It automatically keeps multiple versions of documents, while the revision-proof databases can do a lot of cool stuff that are perfect for legal work, regulations, and audit trails. It also has EPUB support and an updated UI for iOS 26's liquid glass look. All DevonThink Pro and DevonThink Server users get DevonThink To Go now for free. All you need to do is keep your license current with updates. Exclusively for Mac Power users, you can get 10% off of DevonThink. Go to devontechnologies.com/MPU. That's devontechnologies.com/MPU. The link is in the show notes. Our thanks to DevonThink for the support of the show and all of Relay.
What about iCloud, Stephen? How are we doing?
iCloud. iCloud has come a long way. Every few years we do an iCloud episode, and I think every time we talk about it, it's like, it's better and better. I think we're way past the days where the old mantra of Apple's bad at cloud services is true.
You know how AI is now the whipping boy for Apple?
That's right. Yeah. That
used to be iCloud.
That and maybe the Mac Pro. But, there's a bunch of features in iCloud. It's kind of hard to talk about iCloud. I like to refer to it as the glue that holds the ecosystem together. And I use almost all the features. I don't use iCloud email, but I use basically everything else. I'm syncing contacts and calendars, notes, reminders, messages. Like, it's been a long time since I've had significant syncing issues with iCloud. If I had one primary complaint, other than the storage, which we're going to talk about, is that if something goes wrong, there's very little visibility into what happened or how you can fix it. Like, if your iCloud drive stops syncing, like, I don't know, restart your device. Like, it's not like Dropbox where I could quit it or pause it and refresh it, right? It is simple, which is good, but I do think it would benefit for people who know what they're doing, for some more control over what's going on. For a long time in iCloud Drive, that meant, well, I really want this folder offline all the time. And they've added that. And I have a couple folders in iCloud Drive that I want locally all the time. You know what? It does a good job. Those files are always there. I think it's really come a long way.
Yeah, agreed. And it's just reliable now. You can see it in our show content. Like, we don't have guests coming in talking about how their contact list got wiped out, or, all this stuff that used to happen with iCloud. All that stuff is pretty reliable. Another way you see it is in the collaborative work, where you can have two people in an Apple Note at once, or a Pages document. And that generally works now. It used to be something you could only do in Google Docs. Now it's just kind of comes with the price of admission with Apple devices.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a bunch of Apple Notes that I share with my spouse and other people, and it just works. I'm not using it in Pages and Keynote or whatever, right? I'm using Google Docs for all that stuff. But even when you and I have tried it over the years for the show, it's good. It really is. We're well past the days of true nightmare stories. There are some features that are in iCloud Plus, which is the paid version of iCloud. Things like iCloud Private Relay, additional HomeKit secure video storage space. The Apple Invites app, for some reason, is tied to iCloud Plus. Those features I am not using. So I don't use HomeKit secure video. iCloud Private Relay is, I know it's not really like a VPN, but it's not like a VPN, but it's just for Safari. It's not for your other devices. Anytime I've played with it, my personal experience has been that I run into issues. And then the Apple Invites app is never something I ever think about. But I do pay for iCloud because of the storage space. And in my family, that's photo syncing. I now have four out of the 5 people in my house have an iPhone. Even my youngest son, who just has an iPad, right? Like, I'm backing his device up. His photo roll is mostly accidental screenshots, which is fine, but it does add up. And I very recently, finally ran out of space on a 2 terabyte plan. We are now at 4 terabytes in my household, and it pains me. It hurts.
I told you that was coming for you.
You did. You predicted it.
Yeah. So that's just part of it. But there is, like, if there's a scarlet letter that Tim Cook should wear every day, it would not be the letter F. It would be a 5 with the GB next to it. Like, 5 gigabytes. I just looked it up. It was 2011 when they started with the free 5 gigabyte tier. That's still the free tier. Okay, so that's 13 plus years. Just some things that lasted less time. The Beatles were together 10 years, so this is longer than the Beatles were together. Adobe Flash lasted 12 years before the death march. Let's see. iPod Classic was a 13-year product before it was discontinued. All of these things are fewer years. Big Bang Theory ran for 12 years. I mean, it's just shocking to me how they have not improved that. I know exactly why, because services revenue is a big deal, but I feel like it's ridiculous that iCloud still just gives you 5 gigabytes.
It totally is. It was ridiculous in 2011. It's criminal now. There are some slight loopholes, right? If you buy a new phone, you get temporary storage. You can use iCloud backup and restore.
But just listen to that. The fact that they have to give you temporary storage because it's so abysmal.
Yeah.
That the default doesn't give you
enough to I agree.
Transfer.
Yeah.
Because you just bought a $1,200 phone, but your free account doesn't give you enough money to transfer over. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, $1 a month getting you 50 gigs. That's probably fine for a lot of people. $2.99 maybe for 200 gigs. My other problem with it, there's nothing in between $2.99 a month for 200 gigs and $10 a month for 2 terabytes. There's no plan in between there. That feels particularly gross from a sales standpoint. There's room in there for a 1 terabyte plan at $5.99. But
they just need to go back to that. They need to redo the tiers. They need to lower the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been raising the ceiling, so you can buy more now. But the free, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you can go to 12 terabytes now. That's crazy.
But it's got to be like for them, just as a customer support issue, like the people who lose their photos and stuff. Just the fact that I don't understand why that's not. Well, I do. I already said. Services revenue is a big deal to Apple, and I get it, but boy, do I wish that was a bigger number. iCloud predictions for 2026, you think they're going to do anything?
I mean, I really want them to have a price change. I don't know.
That's wish casting, though.
I am wish casting. In terms of like actual changes, I don't think there's like an obvious hole in their lineup in terms of what iCloud can't do compared to, things like Gmail or Dropbox or other things. I think it's in as good a shape as it's going to be. I think iCloud Drive in particular had some low-hanging fruit that they've dealt with. And I don't see radical changes coming here in the next year.
No. And the product overall is like, it's doing the job that they asked of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was a little more transparent.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Dropbox level transparent, but I just wish there was a little bit more control we had. And troubleshooting, and because you do occasionally run into issues and you really have no idea how to fix it with iCloud.
Mm-hmm. That's it's true. I mean, it's restart the device, it's toggle the syncing on and off, but that can be actually like problematic depending on the state that your data may be in.
Yeah.
Exporting out of Apple's iCloud apps into other things is not always easy. All that is room for improvement, but most of that's software, like the actual service itself. Feels pretty stable. What about Apple's other services? So that's, music, news plus, fitness plus, podcast, books, the App Store. I mean, this list goes on and on. What of these other services are you taking advantage of?
I'm a fan. I'm using pretty much all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The one I use the least is News Plus.
Yeah.
I just don't consume news that much in that way, and I just don't care for it. But the music, we have a family account. That's it. I know a lot of people prefer Spotify, but I've just never run into a problem where I couldn't find something I wanted on Apple Music.
Same.
And the integration with the HomePods and everything is just so great. I really like it.
Yeah.
The podcast app, I think, is way better than it used to be. I use it every year from June to September with the kind of like during the beta season. I like to use the Apple native apps, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, I do kind of like the third-party ones. They usually add a few more bells and whistles, but in the latest betas, the podcast is adding chapter support for shows that don't have it. Of course, we have it already, but but if they don't have it, they're adding it. So I feel like they're kind of hitting on cylinders here. For most people, I think the services Apple's putting together are pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm using Apple Music. We have the family plan. We actually pay for Apple One, which combines all of these things. Yeah. And I do think Apple does a really, really good job. Like every 6 months, I'm like, I don't really use all these things, but then I like try to take them out and it tells me what I'm going to be paying for the things I want. And like Apple One is cheaper. Apple Music, definitely. Apple TV, streaming. They still call it TV Plus on the Apple One page. Get on that. Someone's got to fix that. Fitness Plus, a little bit. There was a time where I was much more into Fitness Plus. And then I don't use News Plus a lot, but I do use it to read sites that are paywall that are free in Apple News Plus. So things like the Wall Street Journal. And I keep News Plus around because I have people in my life who use it a lot and they send me Apple News links. And so that's fine. But I very rarely go in there just of my own accord. And then Arcade doesn't really do anything for me as someone who doesn't really play games. But one thing I really appreciate about Apple Arcade is that it has been a vehicle for classic iOS games to be rejuvenated, and games in Apple Arcade don't have all the microtransactions. And so as a parent, like if one of my kids wants to play a game on their iPad or something, if there's an Apple Arcade version, that'll be the one I download. I do appreciate that, even though personally it doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, I use Fitness Plus still, but not as often. We've been going to a place where we do stuff, so I do that more often. But on days I don't go to the place, I still do Fitness Plus routines, and I guess there's a rumor that may go away, or it's getting, I guess, what would they say, under review? Under review is the report about Apple Fitness Plus. I hope they don't take it away. I mean, anyway, they are making a lot of money on services revenue, guys. They could afford this. Oh, yeah. And the biggest chunk of that services revenue, to be clear, is not Fitness Plus, News Plus, Apple Arcade. It's a bunch of money they get from Google for Google to be the default search in Safari, which is still, that was in court and it got the thumbs up, or at least it didn't get the thumbs down. So that's still in place. But a lot of that is also the App Store, right? Apple's either 30 or 15% on transactions in the App Store. And I think out of all of these services, it's not, people don't think about the App Store as a service. They think about it as a place. But now being on the developer side of things, I think about it as a service because Apple is
taking that cut. Now we get a lot of things for that cut, right? And the App Store comes with a lot of services for developers that doing it ourselves would be a nightmare. But I do think that when we talk about the future of these services, the App Store has the most volatile future. It is being picked apart by government and regulation agencies around the world. Google just recently moved the Play Store to 20% or 9% cut, depending on various factors. That was in response to some regulation, and they said, look, we're just going to do this worldwide. Apple's unwilling at this point to do that, and so the App Store functions differently and has different business deals in different parts of the world. I think it's going to continue to be an issue for them to deal with, and I just wish they would deal with it more gracefully. I don't have a problem with their cut as, out of Widgetsmith and Sleep and Pedometer Plus. We get lots of things for that, but it's also really hard not to look around and say, well, this is not going to be sustainable forever from their perspective.
Yeah, I feel like they're fighting a lot of little battles rather than just kind of man up on it. But that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, I think so too. Something
we got this year in Apple services is Apple Care One, where you can combine services into Apple Care.
Yeah.
I have been really happy with that. I saved money moving my Core 3 devices, to it. And I think it's just a really digestible way to get Apple Care. And I think that was a win.
Yeah. I'm using it for my iPhone, my MacBook Pro, and my Apple Watch. So it's $20 a month for those 3 devices. You can add additional devices. I think it's for $5.99 a month. So if you have a Vision Pro and you use it and you care about the warranty, this is the best way to have Apple Care on a Vision Pro, because that Apple Care is really expensive on its own.
Yeah.
But, say that I wanted to add my display or my iPad or something, right? Both of those have some years on them now. But it wouldn't be a big deal to set it up. And what's really cool, so I had this also set up for my wife for her new MacBook Air, her Apple Watch, and her phone. And when I upgraded her phone, it just asked me, hey, do you want to replace the old phone on her Apple Care One plan? And I was like, tap the button and it was done. So, I know our friend John Siracusa over on ATP had a lot of issues with it because he has Macs in his household that are used by multiple users, and that seems to confuse it about whose Mac it is. But most of us aren't in that situation. And at least in my household, for my 3 devices and Mary's 3 devices, it's been great. And we're saving a bunch of money, and we can just leave it running as long as we have the devices. And I don't really have to worry about it. So I personally have been pretty happy with it.
Ditto. Services overall, what do you think? I mean, where are they going with it, and how are they doing?
I think the media services, the entertainment services are all in pretty good shape. I think that, we'll see what they do with Fitness Plus. I have complaints about News Plus, how the app works. But I think in general, they're doing a pretty good job. I think the App Store is the shadow, it's the rainy day for Apple when it comes to services. It makes them a lot of money, but it also exposes them to a lot of risk. And I think that situation is going to continue to evolve with time. And I think more and more, as in some regions, in some countries, regulators get concessions out of Apple for the App Store, that's going to be harder and harder for Apple to win those cases. And at some point, I do hope that they become proactive around some of these issues.
Well, I think, because you and I both know a lot of developers, that developer relations is at a low. And there's a lot of bad feeling between Apple and some of their most loyal developers just because of the way, kind of their attitude around this stuff. And when you read the books, the Apple Inside stuff, there's definitely I'm sure not all Apple employees feel this way, but I feel like there is a mindset management that, hey, we made the platform, so you only exist because of what we've done.
Yeah.
So you owe us this. And, and I really don't think that's being completely honest with themselves. I think one of the reasons the platforms are so successful is because good developers brought the software to the platform. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not a one-way street. It's not that these developers aren't just taking from you; they're adding value. If you don't believe me, look at the Vision Pro. And
yeah.
I hope that they get more enlightened about that and just kind of get off their high horse and get that sorted out. Because, developers want to have a good relationship with Apple. A lot of people making software for it are doing it intentionally because they love a lot of the decisions Apple's made over its history and the kind of platforms that they're making. And I just feel like that's a problem that could be solved with a mindset change.
Lastly, just sort of broad ecosystem stuff. Some of these things like HomeKit or Find My or iMessage, they touch all the platforms, but there are also opportunities for Apple, depending on if you like Apple or not, to give you features or to lock you into their platforms.
Yeah.
And, there's a bunch of these. We don't have time to go through all of them, but I feel like generally things that work between your devices, so HomeKit or iMessage, things that aren't really iCloud. I feel like those are all also in pretty good shape. I've spent a lot of time just for instance in HomeKit recently, new house, setting up new automations. I think I talked about at some point wanting to do a presence sensor in my garage tied to a light switch that would turn the overhead lights on. I did it this weekend. It works beautifully. It's great. The fact that HomeKit works with Matter and Thread and Zigbee devices, like all of that stuff, I feel is really good. And really interestingly, I don't know, I'm sure you saw this a couple weeks ago now. Google announced that the Pixel 10 family Quick Share, which is kind of Android's version of AirDrop, will now work with AirDrop. They did this seemingly without Apple's input. They say that it's secure, that they went through it. But really interesting. And I think it made headlines because AirDrop is one of those things that is a feature, but it is also, depending on how you look at it, a lock-in situation, right? Like, if I'm Mac-based at work and I want to move footage, it's easier to have an iPhone, right? Or whatever. And I use AirDrop all the time. I think a lot of people do. And this is a little bit of an opening of that up. Now, Google was probably building on a footstool made possible by some regulation. The ecosystem stuff in particular, so take the Apple Watch, right? The Apple Watch can do things other smartwatches can't with the iPhone. That is an angle for regulatory action. And maybe it weakens the link between the iPhone and Apple Watch, or at least puts things like the Pebble or Wear OS smartwatches on more equal footing. It's very complicated, but I don't feel like I run into a lot of ecosystem technologies that fail me. I feel like all of it's pretty solid.
Yeah. I mean, I think that stuff has evolved better than it's ever been. I mean, just the fact you can use your keyboard on your Mac to drive your iPad and drag an app over to your iPad. Yeah. It's just like they've really come a long way with this stuff. Great. And it's just become so seamless. You don't think about it. The clipboard transferring among platforms.
iPhone mirroring, dude, I use it every day.
Yeah. And I feel like this is kind of a payoff for like all the behind the scenes stuff they've been doing and talking about WWC the last 10 years. But like, it's really kind of come into this unified system more than ever. It's ironic that they're getting regulatory pushback on it now. But the fact is they've built a really good system. If you're willing to use Apple's hardware, the ability to jump between them is just so easy. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a win for Apple. I think overall the stuff is pretty good. The HomeKit stuff, I think, is in the best shape it's been because of the Matter compatibility. Yeah. I was just thinking, as I'm resetting my Wi-Fi network, I may just disable Home Assistant. I know that Home Assistant gives me some tools I don't get with HomeKit. But I'd be curious to see how my home automation looks if I just used HomeKit. I think it's probably good enough, and now I probably could. And like a lot of this stuff is just in really good shape right now.
I think so too. I think that Apple, while on the surface, it's like, oh, okay, well, like something like HomeKit or the iMessage features or AirDrop. Like, it feels like, oh, these are secondary things. But really, in hindsight, I mean, continuity was first introduced in iOS 8. The idea that I could have an app or a document working on my iPad and then move to my Mac and it's presented to me, it's ready for me. It was very basic in hindsight, right? And I don't know how many people like fluidly move between their devices. I'm sure some people do, but that really built the groundwork for so much of what we have today. You mentioned using an iPad with the same keyboard and trackpad with your Mac, or using it in Sidecar where it's an extension of your Mac display, iPhone mirroring. Like, there's so many features that they're not core features. They're not things that they may not be lock-in features in the sense that, like, I'm really missing out. But a lot of these things just make it nicer to be an Apple customer. And Apple's whole thing for a million years has been hardware and software and now services working together. And that is the ecosystem, right? It's kind of hard to talk about because it's all these things that kind of link all these things together. But very clearly, people at Apple are thinking about, okay, if you have multiple of our devices, what can we do, right? Like the Apple Watch to unlock a Mac, right? Before Touch ID was on the Mac widely available. Incredible feature, right? It's not going to make anyone, I don't think, buy an Apple Watch, but it may make you keep an Apple Watch on your wrist. And even if you're going to wear it every day anyways, it's a nice bonus on top of the baseline features. And I think that stuff is important. I mean, another great example of this is Apple Health, right? HealthKit ties a bajillion apps together. It manages data coming from the motion coprocessor on your phone, all the sensors in your watch. All these apps can talk to the central database. Apple Health provides some data. Third parties usually do a more in-depth job of surfacing that data. But Health is a little ecosystem on top of Apple's platform, just like HomeKit is. And I think another example where they're doing a good job in terms of, taking all these inputs and synthesizing the data. They don't always do a home run and suggesting how you could improve things, but third parties can do that and do it pretty well.
I always ask guests, like, if you were Tim Cook for a day, what would you do? I think fitting, and I know we're long, gang, but we're long, so let's just be long this episode.
Sure.
But Tim, if you were Tim Cook, someone gave you the reins at Apple, kind of now finishing this big state of the platform series. Mm-hmm. Are there 2 or 3 things? What would be your priorities? And I know we all have pet issues, like adding links to Apple Notes, stuff like that.
I'm not going to say the Mac Pro. I think Apple's biggest challenge is its reputation. There was a time where being an Apple user was weird and cool, and if you were in the club, you got it, and it was exciting and fun. As Apple has become more mainstream, that has been lost, but that's okay. What I'm really talking about is, and people conflate these things. People are like, oh, when it was the cool kids club, it felt better, and now it's bigger and it doesn't. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, as Apple has gotten bigger, it has made lots of decisions that are financial first and that have harmed their relationship with their customers or with their third-party developers. And that, I think, should be an existential crisis for Apple's leadership team, that they really need to get a handle on how people think about Apple. Very few people think about Apple as their friendly computer company down the street the way they used to. Some of that's inevitable with size, but things like the App Store, things like, you know what? Open it up where other watches can do what the Apple Watch can do. And they've done this in areas, but in areas where they don't make money. So like Matter and Thread and Zigbee, all those protocols that work with HomeKit, Apple can do that because it's not harming their light bulb business. Apple doesn't make any smart home accessories, right? But in the areas where the right answer and the financial answer disagree, it feels like a lot of the time Apple picks the financial answer. And I think that I think that is something that they need to reckon with.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, I don't mean to be harsh, right? Like we say this because we both come from the time where everybody loved everything Apple did, and while sometimes I do yearn for the simplicity of those days, there's no doubt that my technology life is better because Apple has all of these things in place, right? My life is better because I have a Mac and an iPhone that talk to each other, as opposed to the days where I had a PowerBook and a Palm Treo that had no idea what was happening without, some janky solution. The ecosystem is good, but it does come with things that I think decisions that I think Apple needs to revisit.
I always think of it kind of as the golden goose problem. The golden goose lays the golden eggs, but you got to take care of the goose. And it's not lost on me that every 90 days, Apple has to go to Wall Street and tell them that they're making more money than ever.
Yeah.
And that they're never going to make less money. And, they've got masters because they have stockholders. And, that encourages a short-term profit focus, which leads you to make financial over, decisions over user decisions. And I think that historically, Apple was actually pretty immune to that, where they would say, we don't care. We view this as the right answer for our users, and this is, in the long run, going to make a better business. And it feels like, to me, a lot of times these days, they don't make that preference. The easier choice is to get the quick-term revenue, profit, and show the win at Wall Street. And I would like them to give the finger to Wall Street a little bit more and think long-term a little bit more than they used to do that. It feels like they don't do that as much now.
Yeah.
And this is a generalization because there's a lot of stuff they've done that's long-term for the company good. I mean, the reason this Mac revolution exists is because somebody did some really good long-term thinking. But then there's these festering problems with the supply chain, festering problems with the developer relations that seems like they're just putting their head in the sand and getting every penny out of it that they can.
Yeah.
And maybe the right answer isn't going to make you as much money right now, but is going to put you in a better spot in 10 years. And I'd like to see them lean into that more.
I mean, Apple is a world power, right? Yeah. Like Tim Cook and his supply chain and what Apple does and how they behave, in a very, very strange sense, Tim Cook is like a state leader, right? It's and all these tech companies are like this, right? I mean, and so you have to also contend with politics and the very complicated issues in places like China. And they have not done a great job of all of that, but it's also something that I think when Tim Cook took over in 2011, I don't think he thought he was going to have to make a decision about what to say to a president, right? Like he was just, he's going to run Apple. But the world has changed around Apple. And I think you're right. I think parts of the company are maybe in a little bit of denial about that.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think they know that if the Apple stock takes a dump, that economies fail. I mean, so much of the world economy is tied to these 10 or so tech companies. And there's almost a sense of responsibility. There are people, plumbers in Kansas whose retirement is reliant on Apple stock staying valuable. So it's it creates this paralysis and this desire to continue to show improvement in the short term. But I just, and this is a complaint that could be lodged at a lot of big companies right now, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Is that we're all just getting a little too short-term thinking. I mean, I think a lot of us in our personal lives, a lot of us in these companies, it's just right now, this focus of get it now, get it fast. I think I'm getting too philosophical, but I think we're on the same track here. And I'm not saying that the company wide is failing, or they're doing great. I mean, they're doing better than they ever could under my management. I guarantee you that. But I do wish that in some areas they would take a little more long-term approach and what's best for Apple in 5 years as opposed to 90 days. And I think that would fix a lot of their problems.
We've done it. State of the platforms.
Yeah.
Man. It's a big company, dude. 10 years ago, this would have been one episode. This year is basically 3.
We talk about the Mac, and that would be it.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for sticking with us, gang. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU, where you can go for feedback and membership. Get that discount on membership right now. We'd love to have you join the more power users. Today, we'll be talking about Steven's broken Mac Mini. Thanks to our sponsors today, Squarespace, Indeed, and Devon Technologies, makers of Devon Think. And we'll see you next time.